The water discussion at the 2014 World Economic Forum wasn't just about galvanising governments, development agencies, NGOs and private enterprises. Hollywood actor Matt Damon received the forum's Crystal Award for his work as co-founder of Water.org, a non-profit organisation that works to help the millions of poor people around the world that don't have easy access to clean water.
I was on a trip in 2006, and basically it was like a college mini course. It was about studying extreme poverty, and every day had a different learning focus. And one of the days, the learning focus was water. I ended up going on a water collection with a girl, and a 14-year-old girl, and I just really hit it off with her. And she had come home from school, grabbed her jerry can, and we walked together for about a mile. And in the course of our conversation, I said, "What are you going to do when you grow up? Are you going to stay in this?" It was a very rural village in Zambia. I said, "You're going to stay here?" And she goes, "No, I'm going to go to the big city. I'm going to go to Lusaka, and I'm going to be a nurse." And I just remember identifying with her, because I remember when Ben Affleck and I said, "Well, we're going to go to the big city of New York and be actors," And I remembered that feeling of being a teenager and having that hope of what life might bring. And it wasn't until I was driving away that I realized that had someone not had the foresight to sink a bore well a mile from this girl's home, she would have spent her entire day scavenging for water. She never would have been in school. She never would have been an ultimate economic contributor to her country, and become a nurse and move to Lusaka. She would just be somebody who was just literally trying to eke out an existence from one day to the next. So there's the issue of death and needless death and suffering, which is huge, but then there are all these other tangential things like somebody having a life worth living that's full of hope and dreams.
My personal interest came about because of this situation that I saw in Guatemala City when I was an engineering student. And I was searching for that intersection between social justice and engineering. And when I took a side trip to the slums of Guatemala City and saw the sewage that the children were walking through in the streets and the contaminated water that they were collecting, it's like there's something inherently unfair about this, a 2-hour plane ride from my home in the United States, and yet this problem persists that, claims the life of a child every 20 seconds. And it shouldn't be that way. And so we set about trying to find solutions.
And the solution Water.org came up with was not to rely on charity alone. In fact, the group decided the best way to help people gain access to water was to empower them.
What we try to do is help the poor find ways to use microfinance, for instance, so that they can get a water connection at their home instead of paying water vendors huge amounts of money, or get a loan, $150, $200 so that they can build a toilet and then repay that loan. In that way, we can use commercial capital as opposed to just straight charity.
So far, Water.org has provided over 250,000 microloans and has a payback rate of 98%.
Well, right now we're in India. We've got a lot of programs that are pretty mature there, and we've got a grant from the PepsiCo Foundation. This is something we'd like to expand to a number of different countries. I mean, it works really well. This model works really well in urban and peri-urban areas where there people are kind of living together, and there's infrastructure in place.
And to provide the much-needed microloans to people in need, Water.org is now tapping the capital markets.
What we actually announced and launched at Davos this year was an investment fund that allows social impact investors to provide funds to us that we can then lend to our microfinance partners at a much lower rate. And we believe they're going to be able to double the pace at which they reach people with safe water and sanitation under that initiative.